Hello, good morning. Hi, everybody. Hey, welcome to Thursday of Odoo Experience. So today it's going to be a very short talk, like they mostly are very short. And I am going to talk about demos, specifically how to give demos. I'm going to talk a little bit about the principles that I apply to demos and the philosophy of demoing, but just very briefly. And then I'm going to show some specifics. But the reason why I wanted to do this, the reason why I wanted to do this presentation is because I do a lot of demos. It's my job. I do direct sales in San Francisco. I sell directly to end users. And the way that we do that is mostly through demos. We talk on the phone. We send some emails, of course. But 9 times out of 10, you can't sell it to customers unless there's a good demo or several demos, 3 or 4 or something. And because I've been with the company for almost a couple of years now, I have done something like 362 demos so far, unfortunately. Like I keep track of them, so I was like, wow, I actually have done a lot of demos. I actually might know what I'm talking about in this case. So I want to hopefully share some information that is useful to you. Some of it might be familiar, but hopefully there's a couple of new things that you can pick up on. So without further ado, I want to start by talking about key ingredients of any demo, something that would be helpful in pretty much any demo to have, like I said, a philosophy. And then I'll go into specifics for sales and CRM, inventory purchasing and manufacturing, which I always group together, project and timesheet, website and e-commerce, and then questions. So I'm going to go kind of fast because obviously that's a huge subject to cover, but I'm only going to highlight a couple of key features for each one. Hopefully in the questions, if there's an extra app that you want me to talk about that I haven't talked about, like Fleet, you can let me know. So, all right, key ingredients of any demo. So I think it's good to always keep in mind when you're demoing and trying to present the software what our biggest strengths actually are. And everybody might, have some disagreement here, but personally, I think obviously it's the integrated scalability, and that means, what I mean by that is that, of course, yes, all of the modules talk to each other, we all know that, but also the fact that they are scalable while they talk to each other. So you can start small and add more as you grow, and that integration will never be lost. You'll always have that, and I think that's really powerful. They can keep that in mind, that they can start small but grow later. So keep that in mind, of course. It's user-friendly, we all know that, but I think for demoing purposes, my recommendation is, since the software is user-friendly, keep your presentation as user-friendly as possible. Now, of course, if you're talking to an engineer or something like that, you can be a lot more technical, but in general, even with really highly technical people, keep it in mind that you're trying to match what the software is, trying to match how the software presents itself, which is very intuitive and easy to learn and easy to become an expert of. So you say things like, as you can see, and say things like, of course this happens, or, and here's the Kanban again, which you're already familiar with, things like that. Keep it user-friendly, not too into the details if you can avoid it. And of course, the third strength, and this is one that's really increased a lot in the last year, obviously, from Studio, is the fact that it's flexible and customizable. And I think that's really strong to show the software and how it is flexible and customizable. I always try to show at least once in a demo how you can quickly add a field or something like that, or rename something. But also, be flexible and customizable yourself when you're presenting it. And what I mean by that is have an outline in mind, be conscientious of what you want to show in the demo going into it. You're going to cover sales, you're going to cover inventory, but be ready to move away from that and deviate and take a detour, if you will. And so that's actually something that I think is on my next slide. Yes, there it is. Don't be afraid to take detours, for sure. And I guess, a clear example would be if you're talking about sales and you didn't plan on talking about coupons, but suddenly the customer expresses interest in coupons, feel free to jump into it then, go to configuration settings, enable coupons, and explain that if you're detecting interest, obviously. So it's good to know and have a structure, but be flexible just like the software is, I would say. And I think as far as being customizable and flexible, one thing that I wanted to go ahead and show real quick with my test database right over here is something that I almost always do in every demo, especially since in the US we focus so much on inventory in North America. A lot of people go to us specifically for inventory. I think that's more or less similar here, but maybe not to the same extent. But I'm always demoing inventory, and so I always start with products, and I talk about that. And one of the things that I always try to bring up is here, our internal reference field. In my experience, nobody calls it internal reference, at least not in the US. It's either SKU, or it's item code, or it's part number. So this is an opportunity for me to interact with the customer and ask them, hey, what do you call it? Do you call it item code? Do you call it part number? And they'll usually say one of those or something like that. And then I'll toggle Studio real quick and select it. And I'll say item code, like so, and close that. And use that as an opportunity to start talking about Studio. And I don't usually go through all of the details, refresh, of Odoo Studio at that time. I usually just say, at that point, if they're more or less interested, I'll say, we have all these tools. We can easily create more fields and bring them over, and we can modify things on the fly. But that's just an example that is easy to use. Look for some opportunity to show flexibility and customizability in the demo if you can, I would say. And as far as the overall philosophy and keeping it interactive, I would say that from a personal story here, about a year ago or so, I'd been doing it the way I had been trained with demos, which is tell people at the beginning of the demo, please hold your questions, hang on to them, and I will answer them at the end. And that's the way a lot of people do it. And it was working out okay. I had some success, but usually at the end of the demo, I would send a quotation, and the odds of them responding, it was all over the place. So I talked to the director of my office and got some advice from him. And he said, in his experience, what makes a really good presenter of Odoo is the ability to sit down with the client, talk to them for a minute, and then pull out your computer and do a demo right there without necessarily a week of preparation or anything like that. And so it made me start thinking about it differently. I started trying to be more adaptive during the demos while I'm talking to people, trying to change things on the fly, set things up, install modules right there on the fly. There's a limit to this, of course. If there's a really complicated flow, of course, it's good to take some time. But in general, if you can have sort of a more dynamic approach to doing your demos, it has a lot of advantages. For one thing, it keeps it more interactive because you'll end up asking the customer questions as you go, and it becomes more conversational. It becomes more transactional because it's not just you're lecturing them. It's you're going along and you're saying, hey, what do you call that field right there? Or do you use locations? Do you have multiple warehouses? Things like that. And what I find is when they're more engaged and they're actually communicating with you as you go, it's more interesting for them for sure, but it also ends up being more interesting for me, which is good because you don't want to just be feeling like, oh, I'm doing this demo again, here we go for the 300th time. No, you want to be engaged, and it becomes, I hesitate to say it, but it actually becomes fun to do demos after a while. It's actually an enjoyable experience. And it becomes more of a collaboration between you and the client to figure out what the solution is for them, unless this is what your solution is. You need to do this. Here's your quote. It becomes two people kind of working together and coming up with a solution. And I find that the clients tend to enjoy that. So into the specifics, I'm going to talk about sales and CRM real quick. Best things to show, in my opinion, the biggest strengths of the sales and CRM. It's a strong app, or two apps now. But of course, yeah, the Kanban, of course, but also the list view and the graph view. Don't downplay the list view. Some people really prefer it, in my experience, I would say. So what I mean by those different views, of course, is if you go into CRM and you have the Kanban view and you're looking at that, that's great, and you can talk about this for a long time. Fabian did a really good job of demoing it yesterday, I thought, but you can also switch over to list view and point out the fact that you can sort by these columns. Once again, I know this is maybe obvious to a lot of you, but don't forget it. I really heavily encourage you to talk about the list view. And also the graph view. And my own manager, actually, he uses graph view on a regular basis to report on, I believe it's sales based on based on individual salesperson in graph view. And he pulls up bars. So you can set it up so you have 5 salespeople ahead of time, and then show their expected revenue, and maybe even group by closing date or something like that. But it shows you different ways to view the data, and one of them, in particular, the graph view, gives you more manager utility. So it's really useful for somebody who's trying to actually supervise over their team. So definitely, I think, highlight the fact that you can view that information in different ways. I would also say that contact management is sometimes overlooked, and what I mean by that is that for a lot of people, CRM doesn't just mean your pre-sales, trying to put them through the process and quote them and close them. For a lot of people, CRM also means ongoing relations with the customers. And so I always recommend install the contacts module. It doesn't always install by default anymore, I don't think. And show them the contacts. There's usually opportunities to talk about this because it's really strong if you can open this up and show the smart buttons and show that they have the access on their contact records to all of their past opportunities or sales or things like that. And another example of customizability that I often do is using a smart button on the contact, if you can, to link to an existing module or something like that that isn't already linked. For example, repairs is a really good module that works great for manufacturers, and you can go ahead and add that in there real quick if you find the correct model. There it is. And as you can see, I really love Studio. It's a really good demoing tool, actually. I would strongly recommend becoming familiar with it as much as you can because being able to do these things on the fly is really helpful. So yeah, smart button. So yeah, having all of your information there is really helpful. A lot of times the actual use case is there is going to be a customer service representative that answers the phone and immediately wants to pull up the contact record and then from there maybe initiate a repair or a ticket. So this is actually an important form too. Don't overlook the contact form, I would say. I'm going to have to move a lot faster, I think. This is a short demo. Chatter and scheduled activities. And what I mean by that is that the chatter is great. It's multi-purpose, you know, scheduling activities, sending emails, things like that. But I would say for CRM purposes, the scheduling activities is the one thing you definitely don't want to leave out when you're talking about that because that's a huge value over just keeping a list, you know, in a spreadsheet or whatnot. And by schedule activities, of course, I mean using that. So depending on how many modules you're intending to demo, if you're also going to demo project and things like that, sometimes I'll talk about scheduling activities when I'm talking about CRM. And then when I'm talking about project later, I'll talk about the internal communication aspect of the chatter. I don't necessarily like to talk about the chatter for 10 minutes in a row or anything like that because you try to keep it moving and things like that. But at the very least, scheduling activities in CRM, very strong. And so beyond that, I also recommend that you show, of course, that you can do a quotation from an opportunity because there's so many CRMs out there, but not all of them allow that function. And that's obviously a huge strength, showing the integration there, being able to send a quote from the opportunity, and also the interactive online quotations. Interactive online quotations, the two biggest strengths to me are, for one thing, you can collect payment directly on the quotation. That's huge, of course, because it speeds up the whole selling process. But also just that it's interactive and they can communicate with you through the online quotation. In the interest of time, I'm not going to show that. And there's plenty of videos online if you want to know what I'm talking about. But online quotations, they're strong. And also, one of the nice things about starting a demo with sales and CRM is that it gives you a good opportunity to transition to another module. You can now, once you confirm a sale, you can jump over to the inventory and then go to delivery and then start talking about the inventory module. Or you can transition over to project if you've just sold a project task and you're going to bill hours. Or you can go the accounting route and generate an invoice. So sales and CRM, nice place to start a demo with because you can transition. When you do transition, though, I do recommend also making sure you go back afterwards and look at that sale order and see, after you've fulfilled the delivery, see how the values have updated on the sale order itself. And what I mean is that when you first confirm a sale order, it says, this is the amount ordered, and then this is the amount delivered, and then, deliver the order, go back, and show that that value has now increased. I definitely recommend showing that because it's once again, it's a big strength. It's not just a one-way channel. It's direct integration between the modules back and forth. So moving on, with some time left, let's see, inventory purchasing and MRP. Now, huge topic, of course, manufacturing in particular. I feel like have to do 2 or 3 demos for a client at least to cover inventory purchasing and manufacturing. There's usually a lot more people involved on their side, so it gets complicated. But at the very least, things that are common to all of these are starting with the products. I definitely recommend going into inventory, start with the product and explain that because it's easy to follow, it's intuitive. I like to show in the list view for products the fact that you can group the products by category. And I also like showing that in Kanban view too, if you haven't seen that. Just grouping your inventory products by category in columns. It's especially helpful for manufacturing because a lot of times you'll do a category for finished goods, and another category for sub-assemblies, and another category for raw components and materials. So, products, definitely a good place to start. And I say locations, if applicable, so I always ask them, do you use multiple locations? Do you have stock locations? And if they do, I pull up the location screen and point out that you have those smart buttons up at the top that show you the stock levels, because that's really helpful, and that's one of the main benefits of having our locations. And same variants, if they apply. If they sell through e-commerce, variants are really good. And if they don't sell through e-commerce, we usually recommend don't mess with variants. It's not worth the complexity. But if they do use them, it's a really good feature, and it's kind of flashy. It looks good in a demo. You basically create a couple of attributes and a couple of values for each of those, save it, and then you immediately have a matrix of a bunch of different variants, and then you can display that on the website. Sorry, I would like to show you that, but I just don't feel like we have time. But variants are good. If they use them, it's a good feature. I recommend it. It has a wow factor, and they don't necessarily even think about at that time, wow, this could actually get really complicated to configure and work with later on with bill of materials, but it doesn't matter, just show them that part. Reordering rules, I can't say that with more enthusiasm. Reordering rules, they are really great, and I think they're great in a large part because since we compete with spreadsheets so often, that's one thing that spreadsheets don't really do very well. They don't tell you when to reorder new stuff when it goes low. But reordering rules are nice. You can set them very simply, just do a minimum of 50 on a product, and then demonstrate the flow of how it generates a purchase order draft, and then confirm that, and then receive it. One nice thing about showing reordering rules is that basically shows the whole purchase module, more or less. I mean, enough for them to see in a demo, at least initially. And it shows the relationship between the two models. So yeah, can't stress enough. Reordering rules, very good. MRP. As far as MRP, I spend a lot of time in my demos talking about the setup initially. So I show them to make, I make a BOM from a product, and I show that you can create components on the fly real quick, if that, so that it's easy and quick to make a BOM. And then I move over to the configuration of work centers. I make some work centers, just simple ones, easy to understand, and then finally the routing. I'll make a very simple routing with a couple of steps. And I explain that because it's important for them to know the terminology that we use in manufacturing. Not every software uses the same terminology. Some people think work order means overall production order, so be very clear with what that all means. And then after you've explained how you set it up, then it's pretty quick and easy to just do a quick flow. I just manufacture one product, go through the steps of manufacturing it. I do like to show calendar view for planning, and I do like to show the production order form. And what I mean by that is in manufacturing, if you look at an overall manufacturing order, like this one right here, you can go ahead and print out the production order. And the reason why I like that is because we deal with a lot of small manufacturers. They don't necessarily always want to use all of the functionality and set up all of the different tablet view work center operations. Sometimes they just like to see it like this, where it shows you the components and it shows you the individual steps of the manufacturing. I don't have a routing here, so that's why there's no steps. But I like to show people that so that they know that it's there. And I also like to show people planning by work center in calendar view. Gantt is pretty good for a lot of people, but a lot of people just like it in calendar view too, because you can see very easily, oh, I have this step here, I'm going to move it over to tomorrow, something like that. So I like to show that when doing manufacturing. And there's a lot more to talk about with manufacturing, but there's videos and webinars that you can watch online that I recommend checking out. Project and timesheet, I'm just going to talk about really fast because we're pretty much out of time. Project and timesheet, I think it's a pretty easy app to understand and demo for the most part. Sometimes it's hard to really impress people with it. I would say, once again, the chatter is one of the biggest strengths. Internal communication aspect specifically. So the fact that you could do the little @ sign and then select one of your fellow employees and send them a quick message. So to do a really nice demo, you can have another window open as that user and then do the communication back and forth and simulate that. I recommend that. That's pretty good. And then also the timesheet plugin is really good, not just to show that they can log time and bill hours in that classic flow, but you can also show them the timesheet mobile app that we have. You can either download it because it's free, I believe, or you can just show it on the website. We have it here at, if you just do a search on Odoo Awesome Timesheet app, you can demonstrate that right here, and they can see very easily in a demo. That's flashy, and our own functional consultants in Odoo use that app every day, so we can testify that it works and it's good. And then also the new feature, the project overview, and I'm pretty sure there's got to be a talk about project in the new timesheet overview, I think. If not, you saw it sort of in the keynote. It's that view, and to me the biggest value is the that column for profitability. That's really good because now the managers can very easily see, is this project bankrupting our company or not? So that's good. And then finally, website and e-commerce. Yeah, website and e-commerce. Back-end integrations. The biggest strength to me, of course, of our website compared to Shopify and Magento, which is flashier, is the fact that it has the already built-in integration of the back-end. It's kind of obvious to us maybe if we worked with Odoo for a while, but find as many ways to point that out to the customer and really drill that in, that our website integrates with the back-end, and it does so very well in many different ways. One thing that I've only recently kind of really come into appreciating fully is our custom form builder, which is really cool, especially with Studio. With the custom form builder, you can create custom fields on the back end and a new model if you want. And then on the website, you can create a custom form with all of those new fields that you've just created. And one use case that I had recently was actually a company that does special printed phone loops, they call them. They're phone loops. They hang onto your phone right here, and so yeah, they got one of them. Anyway, their business model is they need people to be able to go to their website and submit their logo and then get a quote. And so they needed a form where they could upload a file. It's really easy to do that with the custom form builder right now, and I like to show that it shows up in the back end real quick. And then finally, customer portal. Really, really good. I like to show the fact that through the customer portal, they can pay invoices, they can see the project tasks that they have and the progress that they have with timesheets and things like that. Sometimes people only use our website for customer portals, I've found. They might have their own website already set up pretty well, but they just need something for one particular function for customers to be able to keep track of invoices. So, it's a good feature. And then finally, the HTML and now CSS editor. That's a new one that you can show people. And you have to be careful about the CSS editor. Don't show it to everybody if they're really technical, and then they're going to say, well, I don't need you anymore. But I like to, at the very least, show it to certain people to let them know that it's a lot more customizable than just drag and drop tools. The drag and drop tools are nice, but the CSS editor gives them the impression that if they want something to be done, we can do it pretty quickly and easily. And I think that is actually it. Thank you. So any questions?
Percentage ratio of online demos to face-to-face, and maybe the ongoing success of...
I wish it was a lot more face-to-face. They're better, of course. They're much more successful. But just the nature and the structure of our office and the way that we work and the pricing structure and everything, it's mostly remote. We don't have a lot of leads or clients in San Francisco, where I'm from, in general, because there's so many IT companies, there's so much competition, and there's not necessarily a lot of heavy manufacturers or resellers in San Francisco. Every now and then, though, if I have somebody that is just stopping by for business, I'll say, yes, please, come meet with me. And then, we have kind of a nice office in San Francisco. They can sit down on the couch and, go through the demo. So, does that answer your question? Any other questions? Are there any particular apps that you think are weird to demo or hard to demo? All right. That's cool. Every app is easy to demo. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.